a lot better. So, it really wasn't that bad. And as I talked about, we all the Midwestern schools at that time were kind of in the same boat. You kind of beat around and you played KU and K-State, Mizzou, and Iowa State, and Nebraska, and then you went down and had your southern trip and played Arkansas and Tulsa and Oral Roberts when they were ranked number one in the country, and went to the College World Series in the mid '70s and got your tail handed to you, and then you kind of limped back north and started playing everybody else. So again, exposed to a lot of good ball players, a lot of guys played with and against that went on to have great careers. So yeah, just a really good experience in playing in college.
What were your teams like? How were they? How good were they?
Team my freshman year went to the NAIA World Series, and I led that team in hitting, and we got to the World Series, and that was a big deal, and played, again, with and against a lot of guys, Nick Leva, Danny Graham, Ron Kaner, that all played in the big leagues, and also a guy by the name of Dan Quisenberry. So I played against Quiz in that World Series, and so we had, again, a very good team. Those were years that we beat Missouri that year. We swept Arkansas, beat KU and K-State, so we were a legit kind of small college power, and so we ended up going to the Nationals, and I think we started like 5 freshmen. A lot of those guys that we talked about that were kind of the nucleus that all came together, all played. And then we thought, man, this is easy. You come in here and walk in on your first year, and this will be something we do every year. And, of course, we never got back. It was just hard to kind of repeat that. But always had good teams, always had competitive teams. Again, just a great years and great buddies and great adventures that we had when we were playing.
When college was over, well, you also played on national teams as your career was continuing.
Yes, played. I was. They took I've had questions about this. I don't really know USA Baseball as it exists today, with all of the kind of levels and academy type organization, just came into existence in 1978. And it used to be the old Baseball Federation. It was kind of the sanctioning body that sent teams overseas to play and officially represent the country. Because, again, in those days, obviously the pros didn't do anything internationally, and you'd send the college kids to go get crushed by Cuba and South American teams. And so we were picked, I think, that year. It was kind of an NAIA All-American team, and had some other guys on there, but we represented the United States and Korea and Japan and Taiwan, and another tremendous experience. Played some really good teams, had some amazing kind of cultural experiences over there, which I think were lost on a 21-year-old kid a little bit. I wish I was kind of, we were just, I was missing my girlfriend and wanted to come home, and we were just ready to go do whatever. But again, we were gone almost a month. We trained in Portland, Oregon, had some exhibition games in California and up in the Northwest, and then headed off to the Far East. And again, Brett Bettler was kind of the guy that had the best career that came out of that deal, was my roommate on that trip. And so it's kind of fun to follow his career as he went on to big things in the big leagues, but had just a wonderful experience, and it was a tremendous honor. And again, it's kind of lost on you, when you're a kid, but really come to kind of cherish the opportunity to have that on your chest when you're older, to kind of look back and see that you did indeed kind of represent the United States. It was the first annual. We were the first annual of an annual Korea USA series, and so we were the first national team that actually played officially in that regard, and were sanctioned by the federation and stuff. So pretty cool deal, and just a great way to kind of cap a good college career.
So you said cap a good college career. When you were winding down and playing with Team USA, did you have professional aspirations? Oh
yeah, I was totally heartbroken and crushed that I didn't get drafted, which at the time I was kind of led to believe that that might happen. And so, the numbers kind of stack up against you. I came back and had an agent, and I got a call from him that said there was a league in South Texas that was kind of an independent league that needed some players, and wanted me to go down there, and they needed a recommendation. And so Ed Charles was a scout for the Mets at that time, and he was always around. And so went down to South Texas. And I remember my dad had to drive me down there because my college car, there's no way that it could possibly make that trip. So Dad took me down there, worked out with him, and basically started talking to some of the guys. And the reason they needed players, and they had kind of the old minor league split season down there, the 40-40,
Right.
and it was kind of early then, and is because checks were bouncing and
Right.
guys weren't getting paid. And pretty soon the couple of teams folded, and then 3 weeks later, the whole league imploded. So they canceled the playoffs as big drama, and it's just so I figured if I just blow up the whole league, if the league I get to play in finally, blows up, then the universe is telling me it's probably time to come home and get a real job.
So what was it like to start looking around in the real world after, the excitement of combining academics and athletics?
It was, I tell you, the kind of thread that runs through my career, and again, it's so nice that you ask these questions of me, is the old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know. It could not be more true. I had started in, you think your life's over. You got your degree,
Right.
and that's great, and you come back and you don't really know what you're going to do. And Hank, my uncle, had a job for me as a Frigidaire sales rep, and I thought, oh my God, I can't possibly do that. And beat around a little bit trying to find something to do. But in high school, my first job that I ever had was to work at the National Baseball Congress, which was an institution in Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
It's the big amateur baseball
Yep.
tournament that I think they just had their 90th year this year, and that was a big deal back in the 70s, especially. All the best college players played there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 16, and my boss at the time was a guy named Bill Kentling, who was a reporter for the Eagle, and also did kind of promotional stuff and everything in the summertime during the tournament. And so Bill Kentling was my boss, and we had all kinds of great adventures. And my job in the press box, which is interesting now, clear back in mid-1970s, was I, with a little toggle switch, ran the 20-second clock between pitches, which was an innovation of the Hap Dumont, who started that whole NBC tournament, because they had to play multiple games and keep them moving and keep them going.
Right.
And so he wanted to pick things up. And so I actually ran a 20-second clock all summer, clear back in 1972. And so anyway, Kentling was my boss. Long story short, Kentling, who was just a genius and a great mentor and friend to this day, went to college with the Carneys, who founded Pizza Hut. Bill eventually went to work as a PR and marketing guy at Pizza Hut Corporate with Dan and Frank. And that led to when Frank Carney led a group to buy the Wichita Wings of the Major Indoor Soccer League in about 1980 or so. They hired Bill Kentling as the general manager. And so we ran into each other. He said, "You need to come do this thing with me." I said, "I don't know anything about soccer." And he goes, "Neither do I." And so off we go.
And what was your role there, and how did you enjoy it?
Those were probably some of the best years of my life, man. I tell you, it was, we had a small staff, 4 or 5 of us it was the wild, wild west of sports marketing and promotions. It was this sport that nobody understood or knew about, that kind of just descended certainly upon Wichita, and then Kansas City a couple of years later with the Comets, and just made really that early 80s kind of a hallmark of everything that was going on there. We had, that was the absolute best possible learning situation. We had the skills that we learned, that Bill Kentling kind of taught us. We had to sell advertising. We had to write copy. We had to, do in-game production, and we had to do the big fancy pyrotechnics and everything that came before the game, that are kind of originated in the MISL and are now, commonplace in every sport. And for me, I got to be, I was a color guy on the radio broadcasts. And so for years, I was working with Bruce Hurdle, who was a longtime sports anchor for the CBS affiliate in Wichita. He was the play-by-play guy, did pre and post game and color, and Dave Armstrong, again, is a friend of yours and a friend of and familiar with everybody in Kansas City with his time with the Royals and in college basketball and his great career. He was the TV guy. So we were all running around the country together. Yeah, we were all like mid-20s. I don't think most of us weren't even married, and we were broadcasting from some of the great old buildings. We'd go to the Forum in LA and think we were a big deal, and and the Checker Dome in St. Louis before, that was just a great old building. And Dallas and Denver, and I think McNichols was already torn down. We were there in Denver, and really got to be on the ground floor of seeing that league, helping that whole explosion for those, especially those first 5 or 6 years when the league kind of took the nation by storm. And then got to do a lot of broadcasting, a lot of kind of, again, a lot of the skills, speaking in front of the public and different group settings and everything that really served me well later on in my career. But man, it was a great time. Couldn't have had more fun, couldn't have learned more, and couldn't have been a better creative outlet, and to really kind of let you, again, being some 20-something, going down there and trying to find a way to bring this new sport to the masses. And it was just, again, in Wichita, and then, of course, in Kansas City with the popularity of the Comets and Kemper selling out. And I know you were here around there in those days. It was a big, big deal. And so it was just a great time. It was about 5 years of that, and just a wonderful experience.
What was the impetus or the things that just evolve to have you move on from that particular setting after 5 years or so?
Yeah, it was an evolution. It was basically I'd already blown up one league trying to be in it. So this league was, had franchises kind of dropping right and left. Wichita was always on a little bit of shaky financial ground. We had to do a Save the Wings campaign every year. It was always tough. We didn't have a national TV contract. We had a little bit of a USA game of the week type thing. That's the closest we could get. We had some playoff games that were on network television. But again, with all the money that's in sports today, because of now, of course, streaming and all, and what's going on with all the broadcast rights and everything, we never got that. So really getting ready to get married, and you have to grow up, and decided that, to kind of have to really kind of grow up and get a real job again. And so made the decision that probably needed to do something that was a little more, had a little better, brighter future than chasing around franchises and see if we were going to be able to survive in the league. So, and strangely enough, again, that weird connection, as Frank Carney, again, the owner, and that was, we're talking to him one day, and basically said, my niece is up in the Kansas City area. She's in Overland Park, and his niece turned out to be Mary Birch, who was the legendary Overland Park Chamber of Commerce, ran the Chamber of Commerce, was just hired in like 84, 85, and was looking for someone. And so, I thought, well, I'll get a free trip to Kansas City, which is always where I wanted to be anyway, and see what this Chamber of Commerce thing is all about, which I had no idea. And in fact, actually, she came down here in true 80s fashion, and we met at the mall in Wichita. And the first thing Mary ever said to me was, you're going to have to do something about that hair, which was, again, true 80s hair. And I said, okay. And so, long story short, she hired me to come up and work with her in the Overland Park Chamber of Commerce, kind of doing marketing and promotions and whatever needed to be done. And so I remember very vividly standing outside an office building on Metcalf, with a short haircut and a briefcase and a trench coat, because that's what my wife gave me. And that's why I said business people had briefcases and trench coats. And so walked into that door, and almost 40 years later, had a tremendous career and had another kind of life in growth and development here of Johnson County and in Kansas City.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Hey Kansas City, Joe Spiker, Easton Roofing, back for another beautiful springtime in Kansas City. We are proud to announce our renewed partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Kansas City. Starting in 2024, a portion of every job sold will be donated to a cause close to my heart. I was a big, and I encourage you to volunteer. And if you hire us for service on your residential or commercial roof, you'll know that a portion of the profits will go to a great cause. So call us at 913-257-5426. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
It's always great to get an update from Dr. Brad Woodle from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
We are very excited to join the Raytown community. We just took over for Dr. David Frey, who retired and has then shared all of his patients with us to take great care of.
They do it all year round, and that means in the fall as well, when people get back to raking leaves and participating in fall sports, all those kinds of things, right?
Back to school means back for fun. Full backpack, we can help as your chiropractor. If you're starting fall sports, we want to make sure you have that